All right. Thank you for joining. Welcome to another session of VRIT. And today is May 21st, 2020, and the day is Thursday, 2:23 p.m. PST. The weather is nice outside. So today we will see automatic payment program. Okay, and obviously I can tell you, you can watch. There are lots and lots and lots of millions of videos automatic payment program. Okay, in SAP, in YouTube, whatever you do, wherever you go, there'll be a lot of programs. There are a lot of more documentation. There's a lot of what do you call that? YouTube videos and a lot of study material. You'll find it. But before you get into the configuration, okay, before you actually get into the configuration, as you know, VRIT, we focus on the functional understanding more than anything else, right? Um, just imagine the configuration documents, tons of them are available in the Google. And what do you do with this? Today, as a consultant, fresh consultant, Google search, right? Today, I can Google search pretty much anything because I know SAP, right? If I'm a doctor, I cannot Google search and figure out something, right? But I can. I don't have to. I can by legally, but then it's going to be difficult, right? But something about SAP, it's easy. Something about Trump, we all know what it is, right? How stupid he is. Now, we don't have to, really go and search something and find out about him, right? Similarly, the payment program, there's a lot of information, but when you search and find out, you'll find lots of configuration document, but how do you use it? Where do you do this? What is the company code? How do you make use of it? And how do you sit together with the business and explain what it is, right? That's very important. So with that small introduction, so we will do the payment program. So let's think about this. When they say automatic, what exactly means automatic, right? By pushing a button, it is going to work. That's called automatic, right? Or without pushing a button, it is going to be scheduled. It is going to run on time and it is going to do something. That's called automatic. Payment program, it is going to make a payment, and that's a program within SAP. Now think about the scenario. What possibly SAP would do, okay, in order to send a payment automatically to your vendors, to your suppliers, right? So we are talking about suppliers here. Automatic payment program, this is in accounts payable context. Okay, so this is going to send a payment to your vendor. Let's take a situation. Forget about SAP for now. I'm bringing, let's say you work for a company, small company. You are an accountant. Okay, traditional accountant. They have sleeping on the ledgers, big ledgers, books, payables, receivables, right? Single entry, double entry, a lot of ledgers. And you, as an accountant, you take care of the payments. So every time there is a payment, okay, you have to execute. You have to write a check to a vendor. Okay, and then you go to the bank and deposit the check or mail the check to the vendor. That's all you do, right? Clear? Now you have a boss, and the boss comes and signs a check every Friday or every twice a week or something like that, right? Now, typically what happens, I have been in the situation. I was working in Singapore for a small ship contracting company, ship repair company. So we have a Chinese boss. He comes once in a week, but sometimes he doesn't come. But my friend who is an accountant, he has to prepare the check and wait for his arrival so that he has to get the signature, right? But however, the invoices are falling due. And then we get bombarded by calls from all the Chinese vendors, and they said, where's my payment? Okay. And then my friend, he has to pick up the call and said, oh yeah, I did prepare the check. The boss never came la. They just have to say something. So when the boss came, nobody knows. But sorry, somebody saying something? Okay. So boss never comes. So, but the job he has to do is write the check. When he writes the check, he has to pick up what invoices are falling due, correct? And when he picks up what invoices falling due, not today, not yesterday, what invoices will possibly fall due by the time your boss come, right? Because Friday is going to come and sign the check. Let's say every Monday, right? He comes and signs the check. So now I have to prepare all the invoices, which is going to fall due coming Monday, correct? Because that is when the next check will be cut, correct? That is when the next payment will be made, correct?
Yeah.
And then now the accountant will also do this. How soon I can pay an invoice to get the maximum cash discount, right? And is there a grace days? let's say there's a 30 days invoice, but usually they give it 3 grace days. Okay. And sometimes the payment itself takes 2-4 days to get to the vendor. Okay. So we have to take all this into consideration. Number second too, which bank account you use. The company can have multiple bank accounts, right? We discussed about the bank account IDs. So we can have multiple bank accounts, multiple account IDs. And there's a specific purpose for each bank account. One will be used for payment, to the employees. This is called salary disbursement. One could be used for, the swooping or loan account, and so forth and so on. So the companies will have, I'm not writing down. The companies will have multiple bank accounts. So you have to, some vendors prefer certain payment methods, right? Some vendors only take check. Some only they okay with direct deposit. Some people will take wire. Some people take different types of different countries have different payment methods. Middle East have different payment methods. Singapore has a different payment method. I believe so. They have one payment method called gyro, and so across the country they get different payment methods. So that has to be taken into account. Your vendor is in Bolivia, right, or some other country which we never known before, right? So we have to take into consideration. It all has to be set up, right? Now, what payment method you can use, right? The guy in Bolivia would ask, well, can you pay in this payment method? But our banks do not support this, right? Or let's say you have a Cuba, you have a supplier from Cuba, right? And there's cross-country payment, cross-border payments, and you have to have a SWIFT account, right? Which you have to telegraphic transfer to the guy, right? And for that you have to have a international wire transfer details set up for this guy vendor master data, right? So far good, right? And similarly, and another thing you have to consider is for what payment method, what bank account we need to use. Okay, that's number one. That's also we have to consider. The most important thing is, let's say you have a group of companies. Okay, I have 2 company codes. One company could go pay for another company code, right? So sometimes what happens is there's a service company, there's a product company, or some companies set it up as just to absorb expenses. Okay, some company will receive receivables, some company will use the payables. There's a lot of things which company they do in between this, under the company. So a company could pay for another company. Let's take in a smaller scale. Again, going back to the same example, Sishan as a company, what is sandwich store, furniture store, car dealer. Okay, now they buy furnitures for a car dealer from a vendor. Okay, now I can pay from the car dealer company XYZ, or I can also have the sandwich company or salon company to pay to this vendor on behalf of the car dealer company. Correct? It could happen, right? Yeah. So there is a paying company code, sending company code relationship. So paying company code is which pays on behalf of somebody. Sending company code is which is where the payables are sitting there. Okay. Now another thing is, so these are the things an accountant has to take into consideration. Second, another thing is when he cuts a check, right, or he has to do a wire transfer, he has to do a direct deposit. So he has to go to the bank, right, and then write his account number, correct, write his invoice number, and he has to give the instruction to the bank, right, and then he also say why you're paying this. That's called a remittance advice. This is I'm paying against this invoice. Now, when that receives the payment, then he would know what invoice this is paid for, correct? Yeah. So if you look at all this bulk together, this is what typically in a small company accountant does, right? In a large company, how they manage this, right? So they want to automate this process. So just think about this. In the same company, the small company, all of a sudden your boss is bringing somebody and said, hey, I know you're doing all this work, but it's like very redundant. At the same time, it's not very efficient. There's a lot of manual process. Why don't we do this? I'm going to automate this, guys. Okay, which means I'm going to create a software, an application, which will take care of all the work you do. Okay, this is a developer. Why don't you go and tell him everything that you do, right? Manually, he will write a logic. Make sense? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
But he will write a logic. So that is what you guys will do now. Okay. What possible information you would need first from this accountant? Okay. Right? Before you start writing the logic. This is very important. Now I explained the functional part of it, right? I'm trying to take you next step to think in terms of system, right? Once you understand what possible a system would need all the detail, what details you would need in order to write the program. If you know this, then you can go to SAP and you would figure this out, correct? Very easily, right? Because that is what SAP does. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's do this. Paul, why don't you tell me? Okay, let's say I'm just do some play game, role play. So I'm the accountant. Okay, Omer. Okay, is no, he's a bad person. Lakshmi is a developer. Okay, so she's gonna ask me a question and figure out. Okay, how about that?
Okay.
Did you hear Lakshmi?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, so you can ask. I'm the accountant. Let's say you're a group of people, right? Let me say not just Lakshmi. Okay, UK, BK, 1K. Anybody can ask questions and see how we put this together into a software. Okay, into an application mode. Okay.
So UK is our program manager, you said, right?
No, all you guys are programmers.
Okay.
I'm the accountant.
Okay.
Okay, you're going to drill me or bore me to death and ask me questions.
Okay. So Jay, you are saying that we are collecting the information from you, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. So to start with, I would go and sit with you to see the process of how many, like what are you doing for now? Like how are you running the checks and what is your procedure of your company? How you are doing it right now?
Yeah, that's a wide question, right? We have to discuss this. So I want to you're going to write it down detailedly. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to ask like specific questions and you know what I'm doing already, right? I already told you.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to ask specific questions in order to write a logic for this program.
Right.
Okay. Jay, this is UK. So I think I will come to you if you're an accountant and ask, hey, what's the terms and condition do you have with particular vendors that I can set it up?
Each vendor, okay?
With each vendor, yes.
Okay, good point. And then?
What are the payments? Mode of payments. What all the payment modes you will follow?
Payments, okay. Or payment methods.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the due dates, like what is the?
It's already the payment terms, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. How many banks and?
What exactly your question?
Bank details.
How many banks they do have and like how many currencies? Different like.
No.
Each bank may have like 2 or 3 currency, like US currency, Canadian currency, and so on. So how many types of
why it's so important?
How many types of vendors, like local vendors and
international vendors?
Yeah, how many?
But why it's so important?
Like because we have to.
Because for the local vendors.
That's why you're asking for the payment methods, right?
The payment method is not a bank detail. Bank detail is something routing number, account number, and all this.
No. Yeah. I was trying to answer her question. She was asking about type of vendors, right?
Yeah.
So why it's so important?
Right. When we collected methods, yeah, that would tell us.
Okay. Yeah. And let's go back to house banks, right? Lakshmi was saying. Not how many house banks. I was just trying to rephrase the question. Rephrase what you would say otherwise. What bank accounts or how many bank accounts you use, right?
Yeah.
How many bank accounts the company has, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And which ones they use or
Different vendors.
for different payment methods, right?
Yeah.
Different payment methods. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to load this. All right, good.
Yeah.
And
Then workflow,
why?
because when we are configuring, don't we take who has to authorized approval? Yeah.
Okay, what's approval process, right?
Yeah.
For creating a proposal, right? Payment proposal. Right?
Yeah.
And subsequently running payment.
Right.
Initiating payment.
Actually, you
And
don't
I
need
would,
approval. You don't need approval for creating a payment proposal. What's approval process for running the payment, right? For making the payment or sending the payment. Let's say or posting the payment, right?
Posting the payment.
Yes. Okay.
don't you think we have two different things? Jay, this is one is payment approval, and the other one is just for the invoices. There will be a process and approval process for the invoices too, right?
No, that's a separate. This is only payment.
Okay.
It's already posted.
Then I would ask how many check runs or how many payments will be done in a year or in a week?
Is there a limit, right?
Amount limit.
Right? Or volume? Is there a limit, right? Is there a limit by dollars or by invoice numbers, right? By the quantity of invoices.
Also, do we have to ask the bank limit also, like bank account, if there's
Exactly.
a certain limit of the bank?
Sure.
Yeah.
Quantity of invoices, right? For payment during a specific period, right? Okay. Somebody who is not in this session watching it, this is very important. Okay, if you do not have a functional understanding, don't go into SAP. Okay, and then somebody was saying about what?
The bank limit, like for example, how much the
Is there a
bank
bank
terms?
limit?
Yes,
Is there a limit per bank account, right?
exactly.
For each payment method, right?
Yes.
Good point. Okay. What else?
Like about the good vendors and the bad vendors, like it will come in the terms, but like there should be like something internal also, like besides the standard terms and condition with the vendors, we must have something internal. Hey, we gotta treat this vendor like that, and we got to give this much grace to this vendor in terms of the payment, something
Good
like
point.
that.
Good point. Grace periods, right? For each line item. Grace periods by vendor, your side like by vendor, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like if it's a good vendor, you take more grace period. That is fair. That's unfair, right? Obviously, you don't pay early, right? You only pay on time. And
On
then
time, yeah.
usually for grace period by vendor, some vendors, they say, okay, you know what? I know I'm not very, I'm not
in a hurry.
sleeping on it. Yeah. I'm not in a hurry. Just take to grace period by vendor, right? Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then also grace period. There's also some kind of, the check to go into the, that is also something, it takes some time, right?
Yeah.
There is also like, let's say, what do you call that?
Value date.
Huh?
Value date.
Oh, good point. Yeah, validate. Actually, that's not validate is a date, but that's a specific term for the action itself.
I would ask if any down payments are allowed in this.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Can we send a down payment, right?
Yeah.
Or advance payment? Good
This
point.
the seventh point will it come under the payment terms for each vendor? Can that?
The payment terms, it's a net 30, right? You still pay 30.
Mm-hmm.
But for vendor, I can say, you know what, I can pay 3 days later for this vendor.
Okay.
Okay, across the board, you said 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
But for specific vendor, I can say, okay, I can pay after 3 days, right? By vendor specific. right? And then there's another grace period as well. This is by vendor,
Mhm.
but I can also do grace period by line item, right?
Mhm.
Even though I agree to pay this guy after 3 days, right? After 3 days of due date, that's called grace period.
Mhm.
But I can also specifically invoice at the invoice level. I can change, right?
Okay.
Okay. And then do we have an option to use different payment methods for the same vendor, right? For some vendor might say for this invoice you pay by check, for the other invoice you pay by direct deposit, right? They can say that.
Yeah.
So we have to have an option, right?
Yeah.
Good.
So criteria to match for the payment, on what basis we are going to match? It means like pay the automatic payment.
No, your trigger point is but this is all you're gonna ask, right?
Mhm.
Your trigger point is due date. Okay,
Okay.
it's actually should be payment terms for each vendor. Okay,
Okay.
your due date. When the invoice is due, you're going to take the invoice and pay. There's
Mhm.
nothing to match.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
So
and the
this
system.
basically, I'm sorry. So this is
Okay.
basically what we are considering an general accountant responsibility to pay to the vendor, what he's going to consider and what he's going to transfer it into the system of automatic payment.
Mhm.
Right.
Right. Okay. Okay. Any more? Thinking? Okay, I'll write this. Yes, 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 yes. Mm-hmm. Before somebody somebody was saying something between option to be. I forgot one thing. Payment, yeah. Clearing, right? Would you clear the invoices, right, immediately before, right after the payment, right? Or wait for the check to be cleared, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because the vendor would take 3-4 days, or the check never got there, right? So those
Yeah.
type of things.
Paying
And then,
company codes.
Hmm?
Paying company codes. I mean, for which company?
Good point. Thank you, Google.
No, this is actually universal in any ERP.
Yeah. Especially in Oracle, I know that.
Yes.
Another one is stop payment, Jay.
Block payment. Good point. Okay. How do you handle the vendor blocks? Vendor blocked for payment, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a dispute, right? You don't want to pay, right?
And also one
Because
more
he's
thing.
supposed to supply, yes, he's supposed to
Yeah.
supply 100, but he only supplied 90. And then we still took the invoice. He's supposed to pay, right? We blocked the invoice, not for payment. And how do you handle this? Okay, great.
Right.
And then?
Another one is stop payment. Normally we do stop payment when we run the check already and we shoot the check, but we don't want it to go.
That is, well, I don't think SAP can do anything with this.
That
Yeah, that's we can do
involves.
that. Yeah. Yeah. How do you stop? Yeah, that's a good point. How do you stop a payment, right? After executing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can this happen with a SAP? Jim?
No.
Because you have to be manual in the bank to request or
Once
send a
this
message.
payment
Then
is
nobody goes
executed,
manually to the bank. You can make a phone call or you can send an email. Yeah, but generally they don't do the stop payment because everything's wire transfer, right? Direct
Yeah,
deposit.
that's what.
And then, I mean, typically there's nobody cuts a check in the in-house. Very rare.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's too expensive, right?
Yeah.
To cut the check. Those days are gone. Because it costs machine for the papers, the printing machine. Sometimes the printing machine get jammed, and you have to call somebody, and you get the payment has to go now. The service technician has to come fix it. It's just lots of noise. Okay, and that's also manual. Somebody could use the check and do something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the blank check. So I mean the printed checks, whatever. Okay. What else?
How do you determine the due date? What is the baseline date?
Thank you, Google. Okay.
So practically, we have some problem in the accounting area that sometimes we run the checks, but the checks are not run properly, or just like you said, one check may be torn or it is not properly printed, so we have to
Right.
cancel that in the system. So
Right. When you cancel the check, right? You can
yeah.
reprint the check, right?
Right.
Again, somebody's calling. Hello. Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. All right. Let me repeat this. You guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Looks like somebody dropped out and joined. Okay. So if you cancel the payment, can you void the check? If you void the check, can you reprint the check? Right? Now, can you reverse a payment document? And if you do, what will happen to the payment that's been sent? Right? Always think about this. It is just not, doing the configuration and executing it. There's a before and after. Okay. I could tell you a lot of people who joined through me, almost everybody was working on, one point of time, struggling with this. Okay. The payment program is very important. So lots of people have been working on this. So how do you send instruction to the bank to send payments to the vendors? So for example, so you don't go to the bank. Okay. That's why we are automating the process. Right now, the accountant is going to the bank and writing this piece of paper and depositing the check in everywhere, right? Now going forward, we're automating the process. When you automate the process, what do? We only send instructions to the bank.
Right.
Okay. We send instruction to the bank saying that, okay, hey, this is what we do. We clear the payment in our system, in my books, right? In my books. Now we want to send the payments to these vendors. This is the bank account of their vendor. Okay. And this, we are paying to these invoices. Okay. Send it to them. Now all this to be automated, which means we have to send instruction to the bank and we have to send a payment remittance to the vendor separately, correct?
Yes.
Correct. So that the guy would know there's a proof that it's been paid, and he will know against what. Sometime if the bank doesn't really give a details, right? You would know how against what invoice it's paid.
Right.
Okay. Number 3, how do you know the particular the vendor encash the check, right? Make sense? How do you know the vendor
When
encash the check?
bank send the file back to you?
Yeah. Why it's so important?
It is important to reconcile.
The invoices.
Why it's so important?
I mean,
For reconciling the invoices.
to reconcile the GL. I mean,
To clear the invoice.
so that we cannot make duplicate payments and.
No, the
We may
payment
have
has been
to-
made. Okay, the payment is made. There's nothing to reconcile, right? The payment is made.
Clear the posting, you can say. No. I mean, just reconciliation purpose.
Reconcile for what? It's already paid, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to reconcile?
No.
Our
Just
books will
confirm.
show.
I mean, confirm.
Clearing
that-
from our books, basically. Clearing from our books.
No. Wait. Pay to clear the payables, right? It will come as paid status and it will be out from the payable status.
So you will know
No?
when you execute a payment, right?
Yeah.
You clear the payables. That's one of the questions you'll ask. Would you clear the invoices immediately right after the payment or wait for the check to be cleared? But in most of the situation, you don't wait for the check to be cleared. Okay.
No, but why we take the file from the bank just to, you know, to
So
be
let
on
me
the same page.
explain this first.
Yeah.
So what is the best practice here? Would you clear the invoices immediately right after the payment or wait for the check to be cleared?
Wait for the check to clear.
No,
Let's
we
say
don't do that. in
Yeah. Let's say the
practice.
vendor went on vacation or he doesn't need the money. It took you 1 month. Okay. The money is with you, which is good for you. But the invoice is also open. Right?
Right.
So what is best practice? Best practice is as soon as you cut the check, as soon as you send the payment, you clear your invoice. I have nothing to do with this. No more outstanding. Okay.
We don't want it to be in the outstanding
So,
list.
okay. But you told that we received the file back from the bank. So what would we do with that file?
No, I did not say that. You said the bank will send the cash, send the file.
No, I said now, but it was before like that. We received the file from the bank. I already discussed a few points before out of these 19 points in previous meetings.
Okay. So how do you know the vendor cashed the check? And the question is, you send the file. You said the bank will send the file.
Yeah.
The bank
But-
will send the file. What kind of file? What information it will have? Why it's so important? And what the file will do?
That is the vendor vendor payment has been debited from your account. So it is the confirmation of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically what he's trying to say is once the vendor encash the check or cash the check, that is when the money is actually going out of your bank account,
Right.
right? Until then, you still have the money.
Right.
Even though you paid the invoice, you clear the vendor. So look at this, accounting is a debit and credit, it's a trial balance, right? One thing goes, one thing goes down. But in this situation, you already cleared your liability. So your liability reduces.
Right.
Okay, when liability reduces, how you reduce the liability? By making a payment,
Right.
which is taking money from the bank account. The bank account should also go down, correct?
Right.
Then the liability is on the liability, AP payable is on the liability side. Your bank account is on the asset side, right? If the liability goes down, the bank should go down too. That's how it reconciles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The trial balance matches, the balance sheet matches. So in this situation, they use a clearing account. So we will all see, okay? We will use a clearing account when they execute the payment. And then when the check comes in, the bank sends a detail saying that this check is cashed now, then it will come and do the clearing. That is when it shows your actual cash position. Your bank account in SAP and the bank account actual cash will be matching, correct?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So this is all the payment program step-by-step configuration that you will see in SAP. Okay, everything that we discussed. Now, when you go into SAP, right? We didn't talk about the currency here. Somebody said currency. We can add the currency here. So what is the limit per bank account for each payment method per currency? Okay, right. So let's say we do a direct transfer, wire transfer, direct deposit. Direct deposit, you could do which bank account for this currency. For US dollar, I use this. For Mexican peso, I use this. For Canadian currency, I use this, right? So you can have multiple bank accounts. That's called bank determination. Okay.
I have one question here.
Mhm.
Who decide the currency rate? It's bank, or we already send a converted amount?
You tell me. You tell me.
I think it should be bank, because
You
our
don't.
account is in dollar, right? From where we pay the payment, so we send the payment. But I doubt that only thing in file is the currency. Currency symbol is different. So bank should understand that this is going in INR, PKR. So what is the current rate? According to that rate, they have to pay.
Okay, that's a very good point. So let's ask. Let's ask this question. If you're buying a vendor, if you're buying from a vendor, okay, let's say from Mexico or Colombia or Venezuela, okay. So you have to avoid using this word INR, okay.
Okay.
I'm so averse with this INR and the date format and so you buy from, let's say, Mexico, by a Mexican company, right? In what currency you will pay him, and what currency you will post the invoice. Let's say you buy him, he's sending an invoice, and that invoice will be in what currency?
Sir, it depends on the agreement that whether the vendor wants in the local currency or the dollar currency. If it is in local currency, so we are supposed to pay in local. If it is in dollar, then it's fine. I mean,
right.
It is true.
Which one I prefer?
I mean, we prefer dollar, but most company, the developing world, they see their, they foresee their currency, weightage. So when they do the agreement, they see, oh, our currency would be strong, so we should go for local currency agreement. So let's say if we go for local currency, so what would happen?
Okay, that's a good point. So let's say a company, that's economics, right? We don't have to deal with this. So if a company thinks that my currency is not strong, is very volatile against US dollars, they'll prefer US dollars. Okay. Yeah. If some company thinks that my currency is stronger, it's pegged, against something locally, like, based on my export and import, this stuff, they will prefer with the
local
currencies. Okay. So let's assume that generally, if I'm a US based company, I'm buying from Mexico, the Mexico guy will send me an invoice in Mexican dollars. Okay. Because that is his operating currency, right? When he sends an invoice, he will send an invoice in Mexican dollars, Mexican peso. Okay. Now, when I make a payment, when I take the invoice, okay, and put it in my system, right? My document currency will be in Mexican peso. My operating currency will be in US dollar because I'm running a company in US dollar. That's a company code currency, right?
Yeah.
When I post an invoice, there'll be two. One is company code currency, one is your document currency. Document currency is which the invoice is coming into. Operating currency, company code currency is which currency. I mean, the system will automatically convert. Okay. Right. That's why when you post an invoice, there's a currency column. If you put a Mexican, it will convert to Mexican currencies.
So right? Who updates the currency? It is live update. I mean, currency rates daily basis, it changes. I mean, exchange rate. Who do we have to update it in the system?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let me say this. Let's finish the currency. The more method first. Okay. So I have to, when I execute a payment, my check will be sent, or my payment will be going into the Mexican currency, right?
Okay.
Right. So I will make a payment in Mexican currency. So, which means I have to use a separate bank account for Mexican currency, or maybe use the same bank account for Mexican currency, but I have to instruct the bank, send an instruction saying that it's a cross-border payment. For a cross-border payment, you have to use a SWIFT wire transfer, correct?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that vendor do not have his own bank account. I mean, that bank in Mexico, they may not have a facility to receive wire transfer. Not every bank can receive wire transfer, you know, right?
Yeah.
So they will have third tie up with a bank in New York, right? You will send a payment to them, and then they will send the payment to Mexico vendor. Okay, a lot of times this happens, and especially companies deal with the U.S. They have, you know, they like companies in Mexico or even in small countries. They deal with a bank locally, and they don't have this facility, right? Wireless facility, wire receiving facility, right? And those companies usually have a tie up with a big company for American companies in New York or somewhere, and then they will, when I send the payment, I will send to the New York branch, whatever branch, I write down, this goes to this vendor, so-and-so vendor, so-and-so bank. Make sense? Then they will send the payment to that company. So there's a lot of things happens. Okay. So now,
I have a question. So will there be that third-party bank choice that how they make a payment, either wire or check or like?
No, the company, so I'm doing wire transfer in Mexican dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to send cross-border. First of all, in Mexico, they said this company somewhere in, you know, somewhere in border, they have a bank, the community bank, right? They have a bank like a credit union. They don't have the wire receiving facility. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I cannot directly send payment. That happens even within US, right? So what I will do, that company will have a open this some kind of bank account in US, some bank. Okay, that will have wire transfer. So the instruction will have to be that, hey, I'm sending the money to you. Make sure you pay to this guy. This is this local vendor number. Okay. That way he keeps the money in US and he probably buys something. You know, he just use the money within US. Make sense? That's a foreign currency account for him. Okay, we don't know. We don't care. But these are the options you have to consider facilities available. So these are you have to take into account before you go into the payment program. Okay. I can tell you, you search 1,000 million videos, this information is not available in anywhere. Okay. Now, one more thing. Yeah, the currency, we talked about this. Yeah, so this is a universal rule, right? If I'm selling to you, you pay me in my dollars, my currency. Okay, if a US company is selling to Canadian, and they will expect Canadian guys to pay me in US dollars. And Canadian guys, when sell to US, and the Canadian guys expect the US people to pay them in Canadian dollars. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how things operate. Yes. But Pakistan is different. Is that what you're saying?
No. Standard trade is based on the USD, basically. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, universally, yes, right? All the trades happens in US dollars, right? But that's because it's easier, and then there's a trade balance. Let's not get there. But generally, I mean, one scenario, right? India exports software to the tune of, let's say, what, $500 billion per year, right? The companies in Europe and, you know, wherever the companies are in US, they pay them in US dollars, not in INR, right?
Yes, that's what I meant.
Right? All the trade that we've done, even China, you know, China had, you know, $1 trillion, $3 trillion deficit, and all this, the money, I mean, they don't make a payment for sure. If they make payment, they pay in US dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why China has more US dollars than US has. It takes all the US dollars and, you know, sleeping on it, right?
Okay.
And then it borrows money. Then it lends money to US. Right? Then it lends money to US. So same like Japan. So they all US dollars. But if I don't have to peg my thing in US dollars, right? I can do it currency. Second thing is, if I'm not my predominant business in Mexico, if I'm just selling like one vendor, two vendor US, I don't want to receive money in US dollars, right? You pay me better, because if they pay me in US dollars, there's a lot of conversion issues. Maybe when I go to the bank and cash it converted, I probably get less or more.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care. You know, this is my money. This is what I paid for. This is what I would have earned if I. This is what I would have sold for if I sold locally, right? You just pay me, correct?
Yeah.
So those are things happens.
So, as a business point of view, like, what's the recommended would be for international, vendor, a payment currency like?
I'm not recommend. No, that's not my. That's not part of
That's
business
not our
economics.
job.
I didn't know.
This is a company's call.
Yeah. Company decides, right?
Oh,
Yeah. I
Normally,
mean,
normally the vendors will give us the banking information. When they are giving the banking information, they give sometimes direct bank information, sometimes they give this intermediary bank details also.
intermediary. Yes, that's the right word.
So that's
Intermediary.
that's all. So we do not need to do anything. They will give us all the.
we just
Yeah.
follow the instructions.
Yeah.
Yes. When they raise an invoice, they clearly specify all the bank information and the currencies.
Okay.
Okay, those are the instructions to you when I make a payment, and the same instruction you will pass to the bank, which will make a payment on behalf of you to the vendor. Make sense? Okay. Is there anything that I missed from here? Okay.
One more thing, Jay. Normally, some companies will have pre-printed checks and some don't. I don't know whether that is there in the.
Sure.
And we have to ask them if we have to give the number ranges or it is
Payment
already.
forms. Yeah, payment forms for different payment methods, right? And remittance advisors, right? So because you are going to print right locally, right?
Right.
You don't have to write it anymore. So the developer has to develop some kind of forms, payment forms for check, right? Those type of things. And let's say numbered check, if you print it locally, right?
Yeah.
Or in the banks also can print, right?
Right.
Now, if the bank prints a check, how do you know? Let's say if you print the check and send it to the vendors, how do you know this is actually issued by the company? How would the bank know, right? That's called positive pay. The other day we were working with Anand, right? That's called positive pay.
Positive.
So let's not get that. So there are more. These are very important points, okay, before you go into the payment program configuration. This is this is a functional understanding. Everything is functional. You can think through it, ask questions, more and more questions. When you have an answer or don't have an answer, now you go into SAP, all things make easier. Not only that, it makes you really stronger. When you actually work in a company, you become more confident, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk to an accountant, when you talk to AP clerk, you will know what is wrong and things like this.
So,
Okay.
boss,
Sorry?
yeah. So can I get the answer of exchange rate update?
Yeah. I was just forgot this. So typically, what happens was in the big companies, right? The exchange rate gets automatically updated. Okay, so let's also add that. What exchange rate you will use? How do you? What is your source?
Upload. Yeah.
What is the source? What is your source? What is the source?
Source of updation of exchange rate.
Okay, ratio. In other words, or the same. What is the source? In the big companies, right? They have tie up with Bloomberg, NBC, MSNBC. There are Reuters, right? You guys know, right? Reuters. So they have interfaces which sends a feed every day to SAP and updates the exchange rate table. Okay. That's the transaction code, which I forgot, OB something. And there's a table TCUR table, TCURR. That table gets updated every day about whenever they releases the new exchange rate.
Okay, one more question. So, do we set up that table thing integration, or let's say if any error comes in, if I pay today and I pay the payment that was not updated actually, whatever the reason was. So, do we have to identify or something?
Well, it really depends, right? The system is just stupid, right? It is going to take the exchange rate, whatever it's maintained.
Okay.
Okay, exchange rate is maintained not per day, not by day, right? It is exchange last updated. Whatever the last date updated is going to take. Now, system comes and update today. It is going to put today's date. Then all the payments will take the date going forward, the rate going forward.
So
Okay.
we define the setup when we are implementing from the scratch.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Who define the setup when we are implementing from the scratch?
Okay, so your treasury department, usually when you're implementing, they will take care of this.
Okay.
Okay, the treasury will, because they are the one who, deals with the banks and asks them to send a bank statement and, a lot of things, right? So they will generally, in my experience, the treasury department will work with the bank.
Consultants or the department?
The treasury users.
Okay.
Because
No, how automatically you said it is updated automatically. So there is an integration with the, so who does this integration?
Like I said, there's a lot of APIs, right? APIs and any technology, web methods, and there are technologies, and SAP has some user exits, functional model, business events. Okay, and they have to enable this, and I'm not too sure. Maybe basis guys will enable this, and obviously if you call the Reuters and say, hey, we are this company and we want you guys to send the exchange rate feed, they will know what to do. They will tell you what exactly you need to do. Okay.
And the exchange rate will be according to the value date or the date when we issued the payment?
Right. There is a exchange rate is determined based on the value, based on the, I think based on the posting date, I think maybe value date. That's a good question. Yeah.
Okay.
Be value date. Yes.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah.
Because we will be valuing the payment. For example, some of the countries, they don't get the date amount immediately on the next day or same day. It will take 2 days.
Okay.
For example, if you are transferring the amount to UK or something, it will take 2 days.
Okay.
So we will be taking the value date on which we are sending.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Yes.
And then now it will make more sense when you watch the video, when the system is up, you can actually start practicing and do it yourself. I am not going to send this, but it's recorded. Okay. You can watch the video and have fun with it. Okay. So I think we can see tomorrow, unless.
Sorry, Jay, this recording will be there on the website now. That's
yes.
what you said.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I will share this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I will share that, and then we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.